The reason why Eric is standing in an infrastructure and platform stream is because the Asian expectation from a platform or a stream infrastructure is actually quite phenomenal. Some of you may be aware that the speed at which platforms are adopted in Asia are just amazing, and as a consequence of that, the speed at which platforms are developing in Asia are now setting the standards for what we are doing in other parts of the world. So I would listen with great interest to what Eric has to say, because I think the Asian traveler is probably a good bellwether for the international community. Eric.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. The session today, we're talking about actually two topics. One is two of the most hotly talked about topics of the year, I would say. One is the tours and activities space, which has gotten a lot of attention this year, and we'll briefly go through that, and how that is also changing as per the market opportunity in Asia, which I'm sure all of you guys are aware of how impactful Asia already is and will be even more in the travel market. So very quickly though, just want to introduce myself and the company and why we're valid in speaking on this topic. I started the company about 4 years ago. Today we're about 800 people across the world. In fact, we are also in London. We have a team in Europe, in London, Amsterdam as well. So we are a one-stop platform that help travelers to book in-destination services. And what we mean by in-destination services is really anything other than flights or hotels. So anything from ticketing attractions, shows, to day trips, tours, activities, local restaurants, recommendations, and booking, all the way to even local transportation, like Eurorail or going to Japan, the Japan Railways. Today we do about 20 million visits on the app and on the website. And all these people actually come right now majorly from Asia, but a good number of that actually also come from Europe and US. And today we offer 8 languages, mainly serving the Asian travelers. So we are relevant in China, in Hong Kong, Taiwan, all the way into Japan, Korea, and broadly in Southeast Asia. And obviously we have English as well, and we'll be offering more European languages. We have now built a network of over 60,000 products across basically almost all destinations that you're aware of. Europe and US is relatively new for us, so this has been in the making this year. And as I mentioned, this space actually has been quite hot. We have been one of the privileged ones to have raised close to 300 million in this space to develop it. So we call this space the last leg of travel market. And it's particularly relevant in today's conversation because it's technology, how this is going to change. But before we go into that, just to give you a sense of the market landscape, it's about close to 200 billion by 2020, estimated by Focusrite. And today, if you look at the online penetration rate, I would imagine most of us here today are booking flights and hotels online or on mobile. Versus if you were thinking about tours and activities and in-destination services, most are still booked offline. Mentioned earlier, why this space actually is quite hot. Few things that happened this year in this space. Booking actually bought a company called FareHarbor, which is a merchant SaaS company that helps operators to go online to manage their bookings online. But they're mainly a B2B business, and TripAdvisor also made a similar type of acquisition this year. And for us, we've raised basically 200 million within 1 year to revolutionize this space. If you look at the space today, there are about 120,000 of such operators that generate actually less than 250,000 revenue. So we're talking about small mom and pop businesses that are very fragmented across a number of categories. In-destination service isn't one category, like if we speak of flight or hotel. Here we talk about broadly, as I mentioned earlier, attractions, tours, transportation, and in fact within transportation you can split it into railways, private transfer, car rental, and also so that's why this space is actually very complex, and hopefully technology can help change the landscape of this space. And in fact, in destination, the nature of it is actually very different from flights and hotels. That's why when technology comes into place, it will also be applied very differently. 61%, as estimated, book their destination activities and itineraries when they are in the destination, rather than it's a pre-booking, which is the case for mainly flights and hotels. Which, of course, then bring us to mobile. And earlier in the session, we talked about mobile as well. Mobile, in fact, is a game changer for our industry. I would say that if there was no mobile, there wouldn't be the existence of these tours and activities being online. Online, technically, in our view, does not work. Only mobile is really the key. So as a matter of fact, if you look at our numbers, over 70% of our purchases, bookings, happen on the mobile. So we look at ourselves, I think a lot of consumers know us as a consumer platform that they use and they book activities, itineraries, but in fact, we consider ourselves more of a technology company. And how is that relevant? Because when we look at what we do, three functions that we apply to this industry. One is being an enabler, how we use technology to enable the supply to digitize. And the second part is the connecting part. Once it's digitized, how can you connect it to a global network of platforms, distributors, from online to even offline? And then finally is the facilitator part, which is actually, as a consumer, you'll be most familiar with, because we as a B2C consumer platform, that's where you'll be booking your experiences across a different destination. So as an enabler, technology as an enabler, we connect of a end-to-end solution. On one end is the SaaS operators that we work with. So we ourselves, in fact, provide this solution to our operators. We have a merchant mobile app as well as an online version of it that people can use to manage their businesses, manage their guides, manage their assets, to be able to then do a seamless redemption that we provide them with an offline POS systems. So that whether you are a ticketing or you are a hop-on, hop-off bus or you are a tour company and you can just scan your e-ticketing as well. And most importantly, once all of your businesses go online, go on mobile, it's about capturing data. And that's where we provide the service as well to our operators, is access to the data, understanding where the customer is coming from, when are they booking, what are they saying, and so forth, so that you can really improve the business and make it more efficient. So that as technology as an enabler. We talked about technology as a connector. So once we're able to digitize all those content, we connect it to all the possible distribution partners. And today it will mainly be in Asia. So whether it's the online travel agencies like Ctrip or whatsoever, we are also partners with them, or platforms like WeChat. Now they also do m-commerce. You have a new era of businesses like Meituan, which is like a Groupon model, but it's way beyond Groupon today. So they also start selling travel products. We help you connect into all these types of platforms, and those also extend not just in China, but extend into Korea, Southeast Asia, and so forth. And obviously, one of the major platforms that can really sell these type of in-destination service products is ourselves as Klook. So as our B2C website, as all the way to our app. So today we have about 6,000 of such distributors that we connect with through our API, white label, and also all sort of technical integration. And finally is as a facilitator, and that's actually what we are most known for, I would say, in the consumer space, is we go very much in depth in each category to make sure that we're providing the most intuitive, the most frictionless experience for the consumer. Here's an example of a vertical page on the desktop all the way to the app that we design and customize just for the Japan Railway company. So literally, if you were to decide you want to go to Japan and you don't know which rail pass that you need to buy, and in fact Japan is very complicated, they're all individual private companies, they don't really talk to each other, we become the connector and we facilitate such experience on the app. And you'll see more and more so on our platform going forward. And the next topic today is actually, Asian travelers, the Asia growth opportunity, and helping you to understand a bit more about this market, and so that you can also better cater for this growing market opportunity. So, needless to say, this is the chart showing the share of Asian travelers for outbound departures globally, and you can see the growth since the early 2000 all the way to just next year or the year after. It's going to be over 30%, and very soon will be the #1 in the world. But of course, when we talk about Asia, I think most people think about China. China obviously is a very big market, needless to say that, but in fact it's a lot more diverse. If you look at the outbound number from Asia, China today is just about actually 30% as one single market. But you still have over 60 to 70% of a market that comes from more mature regions like Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and then you have emerging economies like Southeast Asia, India, and so forth. So it's a very diverse landscape, whether it's in terms of languages, in terms of cultures, in terms of currencies, and even in terms of payments. If you are familiar with China, WeChat Pay, Alipay is popular, but those are not used by people in Hong Kong, nor are they used by people in Japan, nor are they used by people in Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia has their own, people in Japan has their own, people in Korea has their own. So it is actually a very diverse landscape as compared to obviously the US, but even to Europe. There's a lot more different dynamics that's going on in Asia. It's not a one-size-fits-all for sure. Second, I think can't emphasize more is the smartphone, the mobile. Today, pretty much anyone who travels outside from Asia are on the smartphone, on social media, and so forth. And if you look at the number in terms of the actual booking, the actual sales, as compared to the Western market, over 60% of the online/mobile travel sales actually happen on mobile, versus in the US and Europe, it's still mainly on desktop rather than on mobile phones. I'm sure you've starting to experience this changing trend of the Asia travel, even in Europe. In the early days, you've seen the photo on the right, which is mainly the first-time traveler from Asia. They travel in big groups. They're checking the box. I'm going to go to London, I'm going to go to London Eye, I'm going to Paris, the Louvre Museum, and that's it. But this landscape is in fact changing, and it's changing drastically fast into the FIT market. In Asia, we've already witnessed it. An example, Hong Kong, a very close destination to China, for example, or the North Asia, we used to see groups and groups and groups of tourists. Nowadays, you don't see them anymore. It's almost 80–90% is FIT. And that's going to happen in Europe as well. I imagine today, probably in Europe, we're talking about probably 50% of the travelers, I would say, from Asia are group tours, but that will actually significantly go down as the FIT becomes more relevant. And if you are in the space of actually tours and activities, or even if you're a hotel business and you're trying to do marketing by yourself, you today are now more relevant. When it was mainly the group tours, everything has already been pre-arranged by the travel agency in China or in Asia, so you're not relevant. You just need a very good relationship with one or two particular travel agencies. But now as the FIT grows in size, you can start be spending on marketing, you can be more relevant, because the tours and activities players, for example, they will be joining your experiences because they look for something more unique rather than just the Louvre Museum, for example. One more thing to bear in mind is FITs, the free independent travelers in Asia, they are very young. Very different from the Western and European market. You have technically two big market segments, the baby boomers as well as also the young market. Unfortunately in Asia, the baby boom market is resting with the group tour. They aren't really switching. So that market still stays on, but it's just becoming smaller and smaller. While the FIT in Asia, they are predominantly young. And as a result of that, very digital savvy, which is why it's mobile, which is why it's online, and also it's very social. So we always actually advise our partners in the tours and activities space to always think about something that's Instagrammable in your experience. So whether you're in hotel business or whatsoever, always think what is Instagrammable, because that will really makes a difference in Asia. Example here, very recent points of interest that's kind of came up in Asia, June 2018, June 2017. You can see the number of posts that we've already had on these two major landscape. One is called the Golden Bridge in Vietnam. It's literally kind of like a bridge but held by two hands, literally kind of from God, and is now a very popular place in Vietnam, and also in Bali, which is the angle where people just like to take an Instagram photo. So takeaway for this is to think digital, think social, and think Instagrammable. And finally is, I guess, how you're going to really kind of tips to seize this opportunity in Asia. And really relevant for all type of industry. The first being mobile first, and it is very true. And that I would say is think about going digital and always going online and mobile. And that's the only way to now reach the FIT market in Asia. Even if you were thinking about B2B distribution are now done through APIs and so forth. Second, the opportunity obviously is humongous in Asia. And I think when we speak to partners, they tend to kind of like shoot everywhere as, oh, I want to do all of it. But in fact, the market is just too big for you to kind of go at it in one go. There's really no one size fits all. We would actually recommend to really stay focused on your niche and the specific audience that you want to. And once you've done a very good job, those people are your brand ambassadors. And in today's era of digital, of social, they will become your brand advocates. It will just spread in Asia across the different markets. So stay focused and carve out a niche and then expand. And finally, but not least, is the market is very diverse. If you want to go, for example, direct, make sure that you have all your payments aligned in all the different type of markets and so forth. So we would definitely recommend is finding a partner, because again, there's so many different markets. So finding a partner together to work with you to access whether you want to B2B or you want to go B2C, or do you want to expand your brand or whatsoever, a partner locally will very help you in Asia. And in fact, if you look at most of our businesses that went from Europe or US into Asia, they've always kind of partnered up. Those who are not partnered up actually didn't really kind of fare very well, I would say. So those are kind of 3 tips from us while you look at the Asia market. So that's it from me. Hopefully you find this session helpful to understand a bit about technology, how it impacts the tools and activities market, as well as the Asia opportunity. Thank you.
As the moderator of this stream and as a host for an earlier panel, I was struck by how Instagrammable the stage needs to be, because speakers move, the slides are in a different place, and it doesn't, so it's relevant for a lot of things. So I'll do what I did earlier, because I'm noticing that for an industry that serves a market that is so keen on social media, the industry itself is not on social media, generally speaking, How many of you today from this conference will be sharing your views on any social media channel? All right, that's like maybe 10% at most in this room, How have you found this? Because you're dealing with, that market, 120,000 mom and pop travel suppliers, right? How are you making them connect with their audience whose first option is social media?
Yeah, well, one thing that we actually do very well, actually, other than technology, is content marketing.
Okay.
So with a number of partners, we actually send KOLs, we call influencers, basically from Asia, and that's what really sell the business. It isn't anymore just SEM. I think that's what kind of the travel business has been very reliant on in Europe and US is, Google
Search.
ads, ads, search ads. In fact, we practically don't spend on search ads, but we spend on content. One is that's the channel for the young people in Asia. So we arrange trips for these influencers from different countries and go visit your property or your experience, and then they come back and create content and then repopulate on their channel, on our channel, or on any other media channels. So that really helps bring your awareness of your service, of your property, to the audience in Asia.
Okay. So, so with that in mind, would you say that Klook is more interested in serving the Asian traveler who may want to go anywhere in the world?
Yeah.
Or are you looking at serving the Asian provider who is interested in the global travel market? Where is your bias?
Yeah, well, I think foremost, it's the Asian travelers, kind of outbound, and that's a market opportunity that we identified. So over the past 4 years since we've been set up, we've been very focused on interregional travel, meaning within Asia, right? Asian travelers traveling within Asia, which of course is the biggest kind of pie, right? Just like as Europeans traveling within Europe or Americans within the United States. 4 years in the making, heading to the next phase of growth, we're actually seeing increasing demand and interest towards long haul. One is the platform is more ready. Second, the affordability is also now better, right? One is from the purchasing power, and second, flights to long haul now costs, almost comparable to short haul travel. So the whole market is actually now very ready for this outbound travel from Asia into Europe and US, and new growth opportunities as well. So that's kind of the main bulk of our business. However, I would add that travel is global. So no matter what, we would at some point touch on whether it's European travelers going to Asia, right, or American travelers going to Asia. This type of flow is in fact what's unique to travel. It's in itself a global business.
Okay. So as you start engaging providers outside of Asia, what have you found to surprise them the most about the Asian traveler? What has taken you by surprise?
Yeah, well, I would say it's actually the fact that when we always talk about Asia here, it is true that a lot of people think about China only. And then what we try to tell them that it is indeed more than just China. You might if you don't do well today in the China market, it's not a missed out opportunity. There's still Japan, there's still Korea, there's still Southeast Asia. You can still capture a certain market and then grow from there, learn about the Asia market, and then eventually expand into other regions. So I think that's one of the kind of biggest assumption that we see talking to operators here in Europe.
Okay. Now, as a researcher, I get to also look at the global market, and one of the things that we find very important, not just in the consumer market, but also in the business market, is a calendar of holidays. For example, yesterday and today are public holidays in many parts of South Asia because it's Diwali. All of India is on holiday, and in fact, they'll be on holiday for many days. And those kind of holidays, the Golden Week, for example, or the Chinese New Year, the Lunar New Year slowdown, those are great triggers for travel. Because the people celebrating those festivals go back to family, but everybody else, it's many days off to do something. Are you finding that Europe, for example, understands how to take advantage of that, and what could the European traveler do, the European travel provider do, to take advantage of these different calendar cues, if you like?
Well, actually, very interesting you brought up this kind of public holidays. Recently, actually, we were looking into this space, this topic, and it's interesting to find out that actually, I think especially for people in the US, in the West, is, for example, in Europe, on average, maybe you have 20 days kind of leaves, maybe 15 all the way to 20. And if you look at across Asia, and especially the biggest markets like China, some of Southeast Asia markets, their leaves is just about 9 to 11 days. So that's why the public holidays become so relevant, because they would combine their personal leaves with their public holiday and take those public holidays as the main travel kind of need.
Yep.
So that's why as a travel service provider, whether you're in tourist activity space, flights, or hotels, you would definitely need to be capturing that. Second part of that is also probably a bit more relevant for tourism activities and in-destination operators is because they travel during those times and they don't have as many leaves, they tend to, no matter what, pack their trip within those few days.
Yeah.
So in fact, it's moving away from the checklist, but we still would like to see more within a short time. So we would always actually recommend our operators and partners in Europe and US is to plan actually more compact itineraries still for the FIT market from Asia. And that's the type of impact that it has with this public holiday phenomenon into the US and Europe kind of travel market.
Yeah, okay. So this is where I see the infrastructure and the platform becoming more relevant because you can augment the physical experience with the digital experience in order to pack more.
Yeah.
Now, yesterday we heard from the opening keynote speaker about, augmented reality. What are you doing to facilitate, anticipate augmented reality, and what do you think the Asian traveler will embrace differently from the rest of the world?
Sure. Well, to me, augmented reality to me is just one form of content. If you ask me, I actually not too big of a fan in the experience space to actually make all experiences available in augmented reality because that's actually discouraging those people to actually go and experience the real thing, right? The local cultures and those sorts of things actually cannot be captured in augmented reality. But we do need a preview. They would appreciate a preview of what it is. So whether it's from photos, from reviews, to videos, to even kind of this kind of VR augmented reality concept, I think it's relevant. But we still very much encourage, and try to bring out what's really unique about each destination and each experience,
right,
and really encourage them to go and experience it rather than through kind of digital content. Digital content is just a hook,
Yep.
and then bring them on. That's kind of where we position these type of content as well.
Okay, very cool. Looking forward to 2019. I mean, you've raised a lot of funds. You're growing at a super fast rate. What do you see for Klook in 2019 and your role in the global travel industry?
Yeah, well, I think I'm really glad that today Asia is becoming more and more relevant kind of on a global landscape as now it's becoming a bigger kind of contributor to global business, or especially in travel. And as you mentioned actually at the beginning of this event is platforms, online, digital. Actually, Asia has kind of moved forward a bit more because they've skipped the era of desktop. They just moved on to mobile, and now they're moving into AI and so forth. So there's actually a lot of kind of cases, references that we can now bring into US and Europe to make it more valid. I personally, I think that it's not that travelers in Europe and US don't want to use mobile. As a result, only 20% is on mobile. It just probably was not the right company that was executing the right strategy to bring mobile to make it as relevant and valid. I think Europeans and Americans are as open to using it. Facebook has proven that, right? When Facebook moved from desktop to mobile, it changed right away. Everyone now is on Facebook and mobile. Can we move the travel all the way into mobile into the next phase? I think it can. It's just about the right company, and that's what we're looking forward to, is to bringing on what we have picked up, what we have learned to US and Europe, and to apply it in this market and to be relevant in these markets as well.
Okay, so we have another 5 minutes. Do you have any questions for Eric in the audience? No? Oh, here we go. If we could get the mic here.
Thank you.
Tap it. Lewis, is the mic, the handheld? Yeah.
Is it on?
Yep.
It's better.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very interesting. I wonder what you think about the Airbnb market, where you talk about fit a lot, and whether the Chinese market is moving into Airbnb, the Chinese guest is moving to Airbnb much more. And if so, how do you capture that demand when they're staying in local, small places, small accommodation, as opposed to big hotel chains?
Mm-hmm. If I'm here correctly, because I think it's about China market opportunity for Airbnb type of businesses, right?
Yeah.
Like
That's
homes.
correct,
Right.
Okay.
I think right now that market is more relevant for the younger audience in China. In fact, because locally, Airbnb type of business is not very relevant. So that's why, which means that the majority of the Chinese population has not been trained to think about staying at someone's home. Many of our kind of equivalent type of business model to Airbnb in China are in fact not individual home sharing.
Yeah.
They are basically kind of service apartment type. They kind of take up a whole property and they convert it into like a quasi hotel slash home.
Yeah.
But to them, to Chinese people, those are still homes. So as a result, most of the people in China don't understand and not very familiar with this home stay concept. The much younger market, and I'm talking about probably really the early 20s type, those are looking very, very unique experience. I think that's where Airbnb type of business model is more relevant. But China is just a very humongous market. So even if we're capturing just that,
Yeah.
and Airbnb is unique in that they have a unique inventory set, they can still make it big in terms of globally relevant. So that's kind of how I see this space in China specifically.
Another question at the back there? Yeah. No, we're not. 12:30. Yeah.
Hello, we are destination specialists from the Caribbean, Cuba and Dominican Republic. I see that Klook does not cover that region yet as destination. First question, whether you would be interested to cover that region. And second is, did I understand you right, that you are helping to adapt content to your customers' environment? Because, I mean, one challenge we have, of course, if you use Klook, we have digital content, but do we have to adapt it to your needs, and would you help to adapt this content?
I didn't get a second question.
Cuba?
Yeah, the first question, Cuba, why we are not there, or
Yeah.
if we are planning to go there. Yeah.
Second is content. What is your content syndication model? Who creates it? How do you distribute it?
Okay, understood. Yeah, so on the Cuba part, yes, we don't have it yet today. We definitely would be interested. Just to share of how we prioritize destination or expansion, and that's actually relevant as destination mature. So as I mentioned earlier is, from Asia, destinations first get popular with group tour first, but we are not relevant for group tour market. As the group tour come over the years, then you'll see the FIT start forming because it produces content, it produces word of mouth back into those destinations. And that's where we come in. So looking at destinations like Cuba, I think for markets in Asia, it will either be right now group tour, or if it's not too group tour, it's probably like too niche for us right now. So we would go a bit kind of like the mass kind of mid to high end market. So that's why for us in terms of priority, we would always launch, yes, the London, the Paris, and so forth, and then we move on to kind of the next stage of destinations, and Cuba would be something like that for us. In terms of content syndication, right now, almost all the content, well, actually all the content that you see on our website, on our app, on our blog, they're all our own content. In fact, if you are an operator, your content is in English, you give it to us, we will help you translate and localize in all the different Asian languages. And those are owned by us. We syndicate it then to only our distribution partners. So you can think about, say, C-Trip. Like in Korea is like Ticket Monster, which is like an e-commerce platform, or even WeChat. WeChat now has an m-commerce business, and we plug it into WeChat, and we syndicate that type of content into those apps. Of course, we go back to the operator and say, hey, are there particular markets that you are open to? If you say all, then we give it to all. If you say that, oh, I only want China, or I only want Korea, and we also can adjust that as well.
All right, final question here, and then we'll have Mark come up. Yeah.
Hi there. Thanks very much for the talk. Very interesting. So I'm from Footprints Tours. We do tours in a lot of academic cities across England. And
Could you speak up?
Yes,
please?
sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Footprints Tours. So we, for example, we operate in Oxford, and we will show tourists around Oxford with Oxford University students.
Yeah.
And in the case example that you referenced, we work with 1 or 2 travel agents in China, and that they provide us a good stream of business. When you're talking about the independent travelers, my understanding was that the group travel proved so popular due to visa applications, and this would help streamline the whole process. So when you're talking about an increase of these independent travelers, does that reflect a change in that process or the change in which travelers are dealing with that?
I would say there's two trends that are changing that. One is you no longer need to go to like a traditional travel agencies in China to get the visa. It can be applied online and it will be mailed to you and you can mail it. So as independent travelers, you can do that very easily. So that opens one gate. The other gate is free visa. Actually, a lot of countries are now offering visa free to China and Southeast Asia. And that has happened actually predominantly right now within Asia. So let's say Japan, right? Japan and China, this type of relationship, they didn't open visa free completely, but they opened Okinawa, which is one of the major islands in Japan, to test that. And then eventually, I would presume, then they will start kind of relaxing that. So visa, I think, will no longer be an issue really in the next kind of 10 years for this China or Asia outbound market.
All right, excellent. Eric, thank you for the
Thank you so much.
presentation and fantastic Q&A. Please join me in thanking Eric.
Thank you.